Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about is my inspiration for making One Piece DnD. There's a couple of things that go into this, but I would say that the biggest inspiration that I have for any of this is my love and passion for One Piece. I am an avid fan of it. I would say that I'm probably addicted to it. Every time a chapter drops, I'm immediately reading it. I'm going on YouTube, watching discussion videos, making my own theories. Uh, you know, I think it is a piece of media that is very near and dear to my heart. I've always been a big fan of pirates, and so when someone told me there was a pirate anime where they had superpowers, I was immediately brought in. I've been watching One Piece since I think my sophomore year of high school, and I'm now graduating college, so a decent amount of time. Uh, the world of One Piece is the world building of One Piece is insane to me. Oda is probably one of the best writers ever. Um, just the way he builds characters, the way that he connects them throughout his world, the way that he makes his world intriguing, and you know, to this day we still have so many questions that are unanswered, and it seems like we're only getting more. So the world of One Piece has always been super interesting to me. Um, to put it into a D&D capacity, I think it works so well because, One Piece, every island's a different genre, or it's based on a different geographic region of the world. I think Water 7's based on France, or is it based on France, or is it Florence? It's somewhere in the Alabasta's obviously based on Egypt. Wano's obviously based on Japan, but there's so many different things in One Piece, including the newest island, which is a scientific, advanced island in that way, and floating bubbles on Saboti, and Sky Islands, and Fishman Island, and everything about One Piece. I think it just allows you to be super creative. So what my inspiration for this D&D campaign was, how can I take One Piece, still use the elements and the overall world of One Piece, where you have the Grand Line, the Red Line, the Calm Belts, the Four Blues, all that, but I can add my own creative islands and locations within the world that don't exist in the actual story, and implement genres of whatever I want to fit a D&D styled campaign. So what I mean by that is, I think it was the first story arc that my players went through, was a story arc based on Indiana Jones. So they met a character and he joined the crew. His name is Dexter. I'll talk about him later. And he is basically barbarian Indiana Jones. He's the archaeologist of the crew. And during that arc, all of the villains and their motives were based on Indiana Jones villains. And I know that's not a new concept for D&D people, because usually your inspiration is just going to come from the media that you like, whether you like it or not. But I think that it's so cool to have it in One Piece, because you can take any piece of media and it will probably fit on an island if you make it that way. So One Piece world building and D&D, I think, just go together so well, especially since you're jumping from island to island to island, and the way that the log pose works and the Grand Line, you can kind of create a story and it makes sense why it's going the way that you expect, because you can kind of dictate what the characters are able to do based on the constraints of navigation in the Grand Line and how the world of One Piece works. And then, obviously, another huge inspiration for this campaign was the One Piece D&D campaign that Rustage has put on, with Tekking, Briggs, Too Spooky, and Noble, or Lost Paws. And when that ended, I was obsessed with it. I found it a couple summers ago and watched it all in a very short amount of time for how I think it was like a 4 campaign or something like that, and I watched it over the course of a couple months, which that's not crazy, but it is. I did watch it avidly to do that, and that campaign with the pirates ended not too long ago. And when it did, I was trying to find a supplement for it. I was trying to watch other D&D podcasts, see if anyone else was making it, One Piece D&D style thing. Nothing really scratched that itch of a new One Piece styled world. So it's the same world, obviously, but different creators will have different creative touches. Obviously, Rustage, he made his world and it was One Piece-esque, but it had his own creative liberties and the way that he would drive the story. So I kind of was thinking, if I would make a One Piece world, how would I do it? And then that kind of turned a cog in my head. I asked my friends if they would be interested in playing a D&D campaign with me, because that's something that, one, I haven't done. Two, none of the players that are playing have played D&D before. So I sent them a homebrew sheet about One Piece, and here we are. We're starting it. I mean, we've already been playing it, and I'm going to talk about it. And hopefully, the next session that we have, I'll stream it, I'll upload it, and you can follow along. I realize that I don't need headphones on if I'm just recording audio. I'm new to this, so bear with me. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was the premise of the campaign, because obviously I've been showing a little bit snippets of different maps that I've been making, that kind of first half of the Grand Line map that I made. But I want to just talk about the campaign, my expectations for it, and kind of the overall premise of how I've framed this world. So the story is taking place 2 years and some change after the execution of Goldie Roger, which means that it is the golden age of piracy in the One Piece world. So many people, after hearing the existence of the One Piece, set out with their Jolly Rogers and their crews to find the One Piece for fame, power, fortune, whatever their dreams are. That's kind of how they set out to sea to find the One Piece. And during the West Blue saga of this campaign, which is something that you guys will not see any of, but I'll maybe describe it if it's relevant information. I'm probably just going to leave a lot of it out because I think where we're going to start is a good starting point, and I'll just give you, the relevant, important information, and the rest of it will just be a mystery that you'll have to figure out on your own. While the crew was in the West Blue, they were gathering their members, they were getting some items. I'll talk about each crew member later on in the video and, what they have, what their class is, stuff like that. They got a news coup that gave them a newspaper. And the newspaper was headlined by an article called The 7 Spawns of Roger. So the crew did something to really piss off one of the high up Marines in the West Blue, who they ended up defeating. But after they pissed them off, they got a newspaper in response to their bounties being posted for the first time. So only 2 members on the crew got a bounty. But they were both a part of what's considered the 7 Spawns of Roger. The article defines that there is a new age of pirates that are coming from each of the 4 blues. So the crew, the player characters, are coming from the West Blue, but apparently there's at least one other spawn of Roger that is being created and raising in infamy in each of the other 3 blues. If that idea sounds really cool to you, I might make an entirely different video just talking about the 7 spawns of Roger, the different members a part of that group, and the crews that those members are a part of. But the reason why I bring them up is because it kind of adds to the world of, these pirates are being spawned in the wake, and, are the people coming up from this execution of Roger. Obviously, there's big pirates in the world, but these people are coming from and being born of the aspirations of finding the One Piece. So the crew get together, they beat some enemies in the West Blue, they are having a joyous time, they get to Reverse Mountain. They climb up it, and then there's this big kind of epic moment as the crew is kind of just celebrating being able to get to the Grand Line. And as they get down into the Grand Line, that kind of air of excitement and joy fades. It almost feels like there is this kind of eerie stillness over the water, like a storm is about to come, but there's no storm. Instead, they just keep sailing in a direction, and finally, their log post that they got points in a direction. They start following it. And then eventually, out of the mist of the horizon, appears this blockade of Navy and world government ships, and a giant ship in the middle that has the letter and number G4 on it. It's a prison ship. They run into a blockade immediately after entering the Grand Line. And from the blockade, way off in the distance, before they can even really make out what the blockade is, an aurora starts sprinting across the sky towards their ship and lands on it. And there's this admiral who has these wisps of plasma energy coming off of him. He's standing before the crew. They're very, they've been beating people in the West Blue, but they're not comparing to an admiral. So this admiral beats the brakes off of the crew. And it's kind of it was just an event that I had planned where the Navy was trying to stuff out the 7 spawns of Roger as they entered the Grand Line. So both the player characters and another crew entered through Reverse Mountain. Other crews entered a different way, but they all ended up on the same prison ship in the beginning of the Grand Line. G4. And G4 was going to take them to Impel Down. It was just basically like a transportation prison ship. And I might make another video just about that prison break arc, because there's a lot of moving parts to it, but generally what happened was the 7 spawns of Roger, all 7 of them and their crews, got stuck on the same prison ship. So I was kind of going from each character as they were in different cell blocks and introducing the players to these different crews. And eventually, obviously, they broke out. They met these different crews. They kind of laid out their aspirations for finding the One Piece, all that stuff. I might make an entire video just on the different pirate crews that they were imprisoned with, because they are going to be important. And that is why I did this event, and that's why I'm making the map that I'm making, because the idea is I have this entire Grand Line where I am mapping out obviously where the crew is going, but simultaneously I'm mapping out the movements of the other pirates that they met, some Marines that they've met. I'm basically just trying to make my own world building experience where I am aware of the moving parts of different things of the world. So not only do the player characters' decisions and actions have impact and make, waves in the world, but there's waves being made without the crew actually directly interacting with them through other stories that I'm writing on the side about the other crews going through the Grand Line. And as they break out of the prison and they commandeer a Navy ship, that is where the story is starting. So right as they essentially start the Grand Line, because the first thing that they did in the Grand Line was be imprisoned, but as they start the Grand Line, they get to go to their first island. That's where I'm going to start creating content that you can actually follow. Okay, let's finally talk about the crew and the players that are doing this campaign with me. I'm probably going to have them describe their own characters when we first start playing and recording it, but let's just talk about each of the members on the crew. So let's start with this One Piece version of the main character. His name is Silvers D. Ramael. Ramael is a Skypian. He is pretty young, I would say, probably similar to Luffy's starting. Was Luffy like 17 when he first started being a pirate? And he has one wing, and he has amnesia. So he doesn't know why he's in the West Blue. That is something that he is trying to, one, find out, but it honestly seems like he doesn't care that he can't remember anything, because he's just having fun at sea and finding all these new fun crew members to add to his pirate crew and chase after his dream of finding the One Piece. Really, it is almost very one-dimensional, but that's kind of how Luffy is. And one thing that I will say as I kind of go through each of these characters, I'm starting with three player characters. Gonna add a fourth one, but that's secret. And the three main characters on the crew are all based loosely in parallel with the monster trio. So Ramael has a lot of plot and character beats to Luffy, and the same thing goes for the other two characters that I'll get into. But Ramael is kind of, I would say, Luffy meets Luck from Black Clover. You'll have to just see, but he is a paladin in this version of One Piece homebrew thing that I found. And he has an affinity for lightning, so he's basically like this elemental sky child that has amnesia and is just trying to figure it out and find the One Piece, pretty much. And that's where we are in the story, at least. The first thing that the crew did is they found a devil fruit, and it is the elemental no mi, which allows Ramael to, in combat, he can roll a d20, and depending on what number he gets, he will get a different elemental power that he's allowed to use in battle. And on top of that, he has a bunch of different kind of elemental-based attacks. And yeah, that's kind of his character right now. Next, we have Maximus Alabaster. He is the first mate / doctor of the crew. He is a corpse. He is a corpse that ate the death no mi before the story started. So he has a backstory. I actually am not going to go into his backstory because I think that it might play out in the campaign as we play it. If it doesn't, as like I want it to, I might make a different video just on Maximus's backstory that he kind of has already told the crew. But he is a corpse that is reanimated using the powers of a devil fruit that give him the death powers. So he is a complete wild card. There's some things that he breaks out and you're just like, how are you doing this? Like how is this even possible? His class in terms of D&D is a druid. So he has all these different potions that he drinks and becomes different forms. It's kind of like Chopper's Rumble Ball, as he would do, like, use different points, similar to how Maximus's forms work, but obviously flavored in the sense that he is a death corpse human. However you interpret that, he is not like Ramael. He is kind of reserved and standoffish, cold in nature. I mean, he's dead, literally, so he's cold. And it's funny the player that's playing him, Frank or Canatero, has never watched One Piece. So one of my favorite things about this campaign so far is the other two players have watched One Piece or know about One Piece. But for Frank, the way he's experiencing One Piece for the first time and all these things that I'm having to explain to someone is his way of first understanding how the world of One Piece works, with devil fruits, with the Grand Line, with Sea Prism, Stone, like anything that is you're gonna have One Piece knowledge for, he doesn't understand. So it's him learning about One Piece through my weird fictional D&D world that I've made, which has been very fun. Obviously, he has kind of character beats to Zoro, so he's like the kind of mysterious, cool first mate guy. He has death powers. Zoro's the king of hell. And there will be other things throughout the story that relate him to Zoro. And the funny thing is, he's playing into that part without knowing who Zoro is. He just is naturally playing it that way, which is, I think, the coolest and one of the most fun things about this campaign. Okay, the next character is Virgil. He is the last player character, and he is a little different. So, Maximus and Ramael have, well, Maximus, I didn't really get into the reason why he's out at sea, but maybe that will portray in his backstory as if you tune in. But Virgil had a little different motive in the beginning of the campaign. He is a chimera human that has cybernetic enhancements. He is a bird human, so he has wings. He doesn't actually have hands or arms. He has claws that he holds pistols with, so he can like fly around and shoot pistols with his talons. That was the baseline idea that he came to me with, and I was like, that's a really cool idea, let's make it work. And he was instructed and given orders to bring Ramael to the barricade in the Grand Line as a convoy to get Ramael to the scientists that gave him the orders, so that he can study Ramael's lineage for lineage factor kind of DNA related stuff, because he's a Skypean. So the subplot of the West Blue was the crew was going on all these adventures, and there was little hints thrown in here or there about what are Virgil's intentions, like what is he trying to do. And when they got to the blockade, Virgil flipped on them and started helping the Admiral capture them. But it actually allowed him to help them escape the prison ship, which I thought was a really cool interaction between the characters. When it actually happened that he betrayed the crew, it was a big moment and reveal, and I think it was probably the highlight of the campaign thus far. Where the crew is currently at is they escaped a prison ship. They haven't really talked to Virgil about him betraying and like what his intentions and motives were. He is knocked out on the ground, so that is how the next session is going to start, is them waking him up and talking to him about why he betrayed them. One thing else about Virgil is he is a ranger, so he has a beast. His beast they found during that Indiana Jones arc where they're trying to find like lost treasure. He found this ancient mechanical bird that he named Icarus. And so he himself is a chimera bird human mix with cybernetic enhancement, and then he has this like cog mechanical ancient technology bird that he doesn't quite understand yet, but he has him. His name is Icarus. He's pretty cool. The next characters are all NPC characters that I made. So first we have Dexter. He again is legitimately barbarian Indiana Jones. I don't know how to describe it more than that. He is the archaeologist. Oh, by the way, Virgil's the navigator for the crew. Okay, so Dexter is the archaeologist for the crew, and he has a strong affinity and knowledge about sky people. So when he found Ramael, he was happy. And he is very buddy-buddy with Ramael. That is interaction that you'll probably get immediately from watching the crew interact. He has this twin blade, so I don't know if that's what it's called, but you know, like a Darth Maul blade, but it actually is not a lightsaber. It's like a normal. It's like it's hard to explain, but it has two blades on either side and a staff in the middle. And when he gets into combat, when he's using that weapon, it starts pulling rage out of him, and he becomes blinded. So it's like this weapon is trying to get. It's basically interacting with Dexter in a way that is his rage of the barbarian class that he is. That's how I'm kind of flavoring it, and I think it's a really cool idea because we are kind of starting to be introduced to this concept more in One Piece, where weapons have previous users and kind of a will of their own, and they can expect a certain thing from the user of the weapon. It's kind of falling into line of that. And also another thing about Dexter is he has some dials that he has, you know, kind of reverse engineer from his knowledge of sky people and sky culture. So he has breath dials on his feet that allow him to skim across water, and then he also found a flame dial in during that arc for the Indiana Jones thing. And he has like a flaming twin blade, and he becomes rage, and he just slices people up. Next, we have Lena, who the crew found on an island with these huge mountains. The buildings were super tall, and they're like, what's up with this place? And the reason why, and it is because of the environment of just having tall mountains. The people there were long-legged humans. And Lena is the cook of the crew, and she is just a long-legged woman. And she has this kind of unique fighting style where she kind of mixes in dances of her hometown with kicks. She is a monk. And yeah, she's pretty cool, very kind of endearing, like the mom caring figure of the crew. And then lastly, we have the absolute legend himself, Stanley Steamer. So you're like, there's a death human, there's a chimera bird, elemental sky, like, and then there's this guy who has a carpet cleaner as a weapon. And he is a joke character that I used to kind of just, I made him, I think, 20 minutes before we had a session as just a little extra fun joke character to throw in there. Very quirky, like One Piece-esque character. This guy who was just trying to become a pirate. He had a carpet cleaner. He's based off of a jingle that I like. And the crew was just like, we need him, and we will not continue this campaign. We will not be able to find the One Piece unless Stanley Steamer comes along with us. So they basically strong-armed this guy onto the crew, and I let it happen because that's the beauty of D&D, is you have no idea what your players are going to make you do, and Stanley Steamer is an absolute non-negotiable thing for this crew moving forward. I think Maximus is a person that kind of doesn't like anybody. He loves Stanley Steamer. It's the only person I've seen him show any compassion towards, so that's kind of a fun little dynamic. He's just a guy with a carpet cleaner, so we'll see if he's going to be able to stay alive. Right now he's kind of just, I guess his role would be cabin boy or cleaner of the ship. I don't know what else to say. Stanley Steamer's a legend, though. So you're probably wondering, if you put all this effort in making these maps, making these characters, making this story, why, and you wanted to stream it or put content out about it? Why didn't you do it from the beginning? And I just wanted to talk about that quickly. There was a couple barriers that I just couldn't get over. One of the biggest ones is that this is my first time ever playing D&D. And this is also the first time my players ever playing D&D, so I'm learning how to run that, how to make homebrew stuff. If you want to watch these streams, don't expect the cleanest D&D play. It's not going to be super clean, but I do think I do a decent job, and I've definitely learned a lot since starting. So it's only been a learning curve to do that, and I didn't want to take on 2 learning curves at the same time of learning how to run D&D, seeing if it's something that would even be something to continue doing. Maybe we only did it for 1 session and then it's like, what's the point? And I wanted to focus on the D&D side of things more, and the story creation and everything like that. I didn't want to have to go through 2 learning curves of that and trying to figure out how to make videos and how to figure out streaming stuff and everything like that. And now that I'm doing it, I think it's fine. I mean, I think it's just a matter of doing it, and if you do it, you will learn how to do it. Obviously, this is my first video I've ever made. It is not good by any means, but I think it just takes a lot of will to just do it. I've always wanted to make a YouTube channel. I wanted to make it more about my like hiking and nature stuff that I've done, but I was sitting at my computer doing these maps and I was looking at it. I was like, man, I'm putting a lot of effort into this. And it's such a niche thing that maybe somebody will see this and they'll be like, man, I love One Piece. I love D&D. This is for me. I love this type of content. Because I know that if it existed, I would be searching for that type of content. So why not, if I'm putting all this effort in? Also, another big thing is I don't really care if this gets views or, you know, I have viewers on my streams or anything like that. I love and I'm very passionate about this thing that I've made, and I think that I want it to exist in some capacity, not just in my brain. Because in the past so far, the only people that I'm able to talk about this with is the players that I'm playing it with. Because if I just bring it up casually in conversation, maybe there's some points that I can get across, like just talking to people in public, but I typically don't even bring it up because there's so many, it's just very complex, and unless you know about One Piece, you know about D&D, you know about all these things, it might just confuse you if I try and explain it. So I wanted to attempt to reach an audience of people that actually would be receptive of this kind of thing, and maybe I can just get it out of my brain and out there for people that actually would like watching this kind of thing. And then the last barrier that I had was I'm currently in school, and so that was just another thing that I had to do. I am graduating this semester with my degree in civil engineering, so I am kind of at a point where I'm gonna get some more free time going forward with graduation being done, and I wanted to wait until graduation was wrapping up to start the streaming stuff, because I wasn't sure how inconsistent stuff would be during the semester. So that was another big reason of why I have pushed it off until this point. But hopefully this video has piqued your interest. Hopefully I didn't blabber on too much, and where the streams and content of the actual D&D play will start from here on out, I think it's a good starting point because it's technically the beginning of the Grand Line. And now you just have the concept of what I'm going for going forward. So if these characters sound fun to you, if the world sounds fun to you, if the D&D part of it sounds fun to you, by all means, follow along, because I think it's definitely gonna be fun. I've already been having such a fun time with just my friends, so I just wanted to share it to the internet, and whatever comes of that, it comes. But